Alright, this is a video on the review of the Miaosun acrylic painter pens. I've had these pens for quite some time now, and I've been experimenting around with them, and they seem to be working great for me. So instead of an unboxing, this is more of my review, which is probably good because I've been able to test the pens over quite some time now, to the point where I've actually just run dry of one of my pens, which is always a good sign in pens like this, because you don't want those types of pens that are going to clog over time, and where you only use a certain percentage of the reservoir of ink or paint in them. Okay, now I have some that are already open, but I thought I'd do my review and I would just go through the process of using these pens right here. Okay, now the instructions are all on there, but if you haven't used a paint pen type of pen before, and you're familiar with more of the gel pen types or something like that that doesn't require any type of mixing of the medium inside, then you might not be familiar with this type of mechanism in here. Inside there's this little ball. I'm guessing it's probably a plastic ball that's mixing up the media inside, and in this case it's acrylic paint. It's a water-based paint that they say on the website it doesn't have any harsh toxins or anything like that. Is permanent and can be used on a variety of different surfaces here. So I don't know why they say here, but it says skin. Why anyone would be using it on their skin, I don't know, but I guess you can, due to that kind of non-toxic nature of the media itself. Paper, which is what I use it on, glass, cloth, metal, and plastic. Now, on their website it did say there's this notation that these don't work on certain types of fabrics very well, and that's probably not so much due to the medium inside the actual acrylic paint, but it's probably the tip on this particular grouping of them. Okay, now as far as I can tell, I don't think they sell these individual. I happened to buy an 8-pack of these. I was looking more for the white pens to try out. And it comes with 6 white and 2 black. I haven't even tried the black ones yet because I don't really have too much of a use for those. But the white ones I've been using so far are really great. Now I'm shaking this up while I'm talking here because with the initial usage you do want to shake these up pretty well, because these have been sitting, for a while, and then in storage or whatever, in transit from the factory where they come from. These are made in China, like everything else these days it seems. But you want to get that paint initially really mixed up really well. Now, you don't have to shake it quite as much unless you go like a year or so without usage or something like that. But if you use these on a reasonably regular basis, once every couple weeks at least, you probably don't need to shake it up too much. You just need to shake it up adequately enough to get it kind of remixed up and whatnot, to get the medium inside the acrylic paint as opaque as it can possibly be. Okay? If you don't shake it up, then you might be getting water or something like that, depending on the direction that you're storing these in. I happen to store mine usually when they're in the box, sideways like that. And then I don't know, after that I don't really worry about it too much, and I just have my pens in like a little mug like this, and I put it, upright. I guess you can put it face down or whatever, but I don't know. It's not something I'm really worrying about. Okay, so as far as the construction of these pens go, let me see. Get this off here. And, well, I don't need scissors, it looks like. Okay, little plastic wrapping on that to protect it from any type of leakage or something like that, maybe in transit, and to just seal it off so that, the shelf life extends. But this cap right here is a pretty good cap right here, so it's pretty airtight. Let's use it on a few different types of paper now. Now, I have some darker papers here, naturally, because this white, will show up on that. Okay, now to get it moving now, this type of pen has this trigger type of mechanism, this spring kind of release right here. I don't know if you can see it. Let me put it against something hard like this, but this, let's see if I can get this to focus in here. Okay, see this right here? This tip has this spring mechanism, okay? Now to get this flowing, it shouldn't take too long. Okay, it's already flowing. I didn't really need to do it. Some of these pens you have to kind of trigger release it and allow the ink to transfer down in there. This paint right here is thin enough where, and the tip of the nib here is probably wide enough where that ink is flowing fairly quickly. Okay, so this is a matte, fairly textured paper right here. And you can see it flows pretty well. Now, I can probably shake it up a little bit more, but do you see where it's fairly translucent? You can see the paint coming through, or the paper color coming through. Let me shake this up a little bit more here. Okay. Let's see if I can get it a little bit more opaque. Okay, let's try that. Okay, now when you shake it up, put the cap back on just so you don't have flying paint. Okay, let's see if this one's a little bit different. Well, I don't know. It didn't get too much more opaque. It's not too bad, though. For my use, I'm not really going for something super opaque, but I usually want it a little bit more than that. I think I need to shake this up more. But you can see the flow of that paint is really good. Okay, now I'm moving fast, too. Let me just show you something here. If I'm moving slower... It's hard to slow down your writing. Okay, it's a little bit more. I think I've released more of the pigment in this one at the bottom. It's kind of absorbing into this paper too, because it's an uncoated paper. Now let's try it out on this kind of metallic type of paper surface here. So this one's going to be coated, and it's going to have that kind of that shimmering type of whatever coating in the I don't know if it's in the pulp of this paper or if it's just a coating over the surface of that, but let's test this out right here. Okay, now immediately, this one's a coated paper, okay? And I can just see that this is more opaque, okay, than this one. This one, the water-based medium is soaking into the paper, I presume. In this one, a lot of the pigment is staying right on the surface due to that coated nature of this. So that looks pretty good right there. And that's reasonably opaque, maybe slightly translucent, I don't know. It might be at like a 95% white or something like that. Maybe not 100%, which, I don't know, sometimes the oil-based paint pens are a little bit more opaque because they just don't absorb into the paper quite as much. So you have that suspended pigment outside of the pulp of the paper or outside of the surface, and it doesn't absorb as much. Okay, now this one is a glossy cardstock, and this would be something akin to practically writing on plastic with how sealed off this surface is right here. So let's test this out. Okay, pretty good. So even more kind of opacity right there, okay? Okay, now they talk about this being able to be used on glass and whatnot. Let's take a look at this little bottle right here. I'll just use the bottom of it. Paint. Okay, I have very little space to draw on this, but that draws on there just fine. Okay, now on the website, or on the sales page, what they do is they talk about if you want this to be a little bit more permanent, what they suggest is baking kind of those surfaces that you want a little bit more of a permanence to it. If you use this on something like wood or plastic or something like that, and if it, depending on the type of project it is, I guess what you can do is you could spray seal it, with like an acrylic glaze or something like this. And the water-based nature of this, I'm guessing, should keep the integrity of whatever mark you're making intact. Sometimes if you're using an oil-based paint and you use that type of acrylic spray, the binder in those sprays will make the oil-based types of inks and paints run because, you know, it dissolves it. But the water-based nature of this one, I'm guessing, will keep that fairly intact, okay? So the way that I'm using it on scenes. I stamp my scenes out on various types of papers, but I like to utilize these pens for kind of some embellishments and final touches. This one right here, I'm going for some additional kind of this plume of this volcanic eruption here, so I can kind of extend out some of these kind of exploding kind of textures, and I can add in these different types of marks. Now, what I talked about before was the opacity, the relative opacity of this pen right here. I like it where it isn't necessarily so opaque. I like some of my colors underneath to show through a little bit, so these marks will kind of blend into the scenery a little bit more. But if you do want something a little bit more opaque, I guess what you can do is you can just add on kind of a stronger dot or something like that, or line if you want to go over it or something of that sort. Okay, so anyway, these pens, like I said, in terms of longevity, have been really great for me. I think they flow really nicely, and I haven't had any problems with it whatsoever. No clogging or something like that. Now, I guess if you're going over, you know, something with that has a lot of texture and it's breaking up into that, you could probably get a little bit of a material stuck on the opening right there. But I don't know. I think it's wide enough, and this is a 0.7 millimeter type of pen. If you get it clogged up, my suggestion is you just kind of get it flowing again just by doing a little bit of scribbling like this. Don't try to sit here and pump it too much down like that and, you know, release that open to the, you know, that little opening to the reservoir in there, because if someone just keeps like pogo sticking it like there and retracting that spring into that reservoir, what you'll get is this big blob of paint that'll come out like that, okay? So just to get it flowing, if you do, you just kind of press it down just a little bit, okay? I'm barely doing it. I guess it's like a 1/16 of an inch just to open it up and do a little bit of scribbling like this. And from then on, like I said, you don't really need to retract it unless it's just not flowing at all. If it's coming out translucent, you don't spring it up like that. You just shake it up a little bit more, and it's ready to go. Okay, now I used to use all kinds of white gel pens, and I still like gel pens and paint pens and whatnot, you know, but these ones have that rollerball type of structuring, okay? So I have a tendency to think that that type of structure would lend itself to a little bit more clogging, okay, because the paints are going to be a little bit thicker, or the gels are a little bit thicker than something like this. But I do use these ones, but I do use my gel pens too, because these types of paint pens just don't come in, you know, a super wide variety of colors. You know, gel pens you can get in hundreds of different colors, including metallics and iridescents and glitters and whatnot. But the paint pens, as far as usage goes and longevity, are really great. Now, so this is another thing in turn, going back to the size of this is the 0.7 millimeters. Now, I haven't used the fabric style points. Some of them are called usually fine point or something like that, and that has that more fabric style of nib. This one again is that plastic structuring, so it's not, oh, this is my old one that's empty. No wonder it's real crusted over. But this one right here is just this plastic nib, okay? Now, I haven't used the fabric style ones, or the, you know, the fabric felt style tip ones. Those ones, I have a tendency to think that those ones might not last as much long as something like this, especially if you have it just sitting in storage and you don't use it for a while. If you get the felt style ones that have that broader tip, it's going to be more exposed to the elements, even if you have that cap on there. Maybe you store it in a Ziploc bag or something of that sort, something airtight. and you use it a little bit more often, and you have to shake it up quite a bit and to just get it flowing a little bit, you know, in terms of that structuring. But like I said, I don't use those ones, and those ones will probably be a little bit better for different types of fabrics due to that material nib and the wider flow of it. So anyway, these pens here, I have a feeling that they're made at the same place. I've seen several different brands that look exactly the same, except they just are marketed differently, or they are purchased by different companies, and they just have a different label on them. So just look at the reviews and see the reviews and look at the structuring of it. These ones look like this, and it's the Miaosun. I don't know if it's the same company selling under different brands or if it's different brands purchasing the same pens and selling it as their own. I don't know. They call that branding as opposed to manufacturing, but I don't know. I find that these work fantastic, and they're super cheap, which is another thing. You know, a really good gel pen used to cost a lot more. And I don't know, this pack right here was an 8-pack for, I think it was less than $10 when I bought it. So just a little bit over for $1 a pen, and it's a pen that for me works to completion, and I was able to use it. I use these quite a bit, and like I said, this one right here was just used absolutely to when it was dry. So I don't know, you can't beat that. All right, so anyways, that's my review of the Miaosun acrylic painter pen. If you have any questions or have any comments on the pens or have an experience using them or the other types of brands, maybe you can leave it in the comments section below, and we can have kind of a knowledge-based developing for materials such as this. Okay, thanks for watching.